A very good evening. Thanks so much for tuning in to the home stretch. You're with me, Catherine Robert.
I'm a radio DJ, and other than playing your favorite tunes on air,
Time for us to head around the world in search for some weird news.
I'm also always on the lookout for the juiciest stories.
Police are investigating the theft of $1,000 worth of fruit.
But there's one topic I've never explored: history. And I'm starting with something close to my heart: my Eurasian heritage. So recently I've been thinking about my Eurasian roots, and I was thinking that maybe I should start doing some digging and also perhaps share with my listeners a slice of Singapore history. The Bras Basah and Bugis precinct is where my journey begins. Because did you know the area was once European town?
This organ is 1912 Bevington and Sons, which meant that it was built in London in 1912.
Girl will be raising the flag.
I find my school days very exciting.
Oh.
Every day is different.
I follow the trail left behind by private chauffeurs of the 1950s.
这个现在很少人要做，因为做这个工很多。
To unearth stories of people and communities that have vanished over time.
They were here from the 1870s to about the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, and then suddenly they just disappeared.
And along the way, I'll be engaging my listeners through a different medium,
Hey, Gold 905 fam, it's Catherine. Now,
sharing snippets of my journey through the precinct that has intrigued me. Back in 1822, the Bras Basah and Bugis area was Singapore's civic centre. Set aside for government buildings and rich European merchants, high-value areas in a game of Monopoly, I'd imagine. To find out what exactly European town was like, I'm zoning in on one of the main roads in the precinct. I have the perfect person to be my guide. He's an architect who has an interest in how Singapore's streets and landscapes have changed.
So I'm actually half Eurasian. My mom's Eurasian. So I wanted to find out more about my heritage. So I thought, you know, the best place to start would be European town. Did I make the right
You're
choice?
absolutely right. Most of the Eurasians would have come from Malacca, Portuguese Eurasians, and they would have settled around here. So this would be a very early Eurasian settlement.
So tell me, why is Middle Road called Middle Road?
In the 1822 plan that we have here, there was different areas marked out, and on this side of the Singapore River, we have a designated European town. And if you look carefully, there's a kind of a square inside here, and what is Middle Road is this particular road.
So why Middle Road? Possibly because it's in the middle of European town. And geographically, being in the center also means it was a hubbub of activity.
So who were the communities living here? Can you tell me a bit more about them?
Well, first of all, I think because of the European town, the Eurasians would have settled here beside it. There's a lot of things going here. There are schools, and of course, there were a lot of shops, right? And there were the hospitals. So it really was a very well-functioning town, and it also had that multi-ethnic character, right? Everybody was sort of like finding a place to stay.
Turns out European town didn't stay European after all. The Europeans moved out and other ethnic groups moved in. But one thing's clear, the area was vibrant, bustling with activities. And Middle Road was at the heart of the action.
I went to school at Convent of the Holy Infant Jesus, or CHIJ as it's known. So I've always known that Chimes at Victoria Street was where it all began.
But I found out that other than CHIJ, the area around Middle Road was home to many schools. One of them, founded by the Portuguese mission, was St. Anthony's Convent, located on 111 Middle Road.
But when I think of Middle Road, I think cafes, museums, art schools, not so much a school zone. So it's made me wonder what it was really like to go to school along Middle Road in the 1950s.
Welcome to you, oh mother dear. Oh, welcome sincerely. I don't know the rest of the words.
Meet Sister Elizabeth and Sister Cecily, longtime residents of Middle Road.
The word Middle Road was very much a part of the school's name and identity. It was the address, St. Anthony's Convent, 111 Middle Road. So this is a mock-up of a classroom in the 1950s and 60s.
At Middle Road?
At Middle Road.
Yeah, the original desks and the original chairs.
Okay, so what do we have here? We have yearbooks from the 80s, the 70s, the 60s.
Yeah.
Wow. And these are all yearbooks from the Middle Road.
Middle Road
Yes,
days,
from
when
Middle
the school
Road.
was there.
I'm in this one.
Oh, can I see?
In 67.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a teacher here. That's me in the middle.
Oh, wow.
In this magazine of 1987, I was already the principal,
Wow.
seated, smiling in my office.
What was it like studying in the Middle Road area? What was St. Anthony's connotation like back in Middle Road?
I find my school days very exciting. Every day is different. And then the culture and tradition along Middle Road, great variety of things going on there.
I think it is not just Middle Road because the school is at a junction of 3 roads. Victoria Street, Middle Road, and Queen Street. You see, the coffee shops are at Queen Street. If you want to take the bus or something, you go to Victoria Street. And then if you live in the shoe shop, you come out at Middle Road. So I think that there was a lot of activity and movement around that area.
It was very joyful because it was home. Middle Road was home. And I think my best years and my learning years as a school leader was in Middle Road.
After hearing so much about the sisters' memories at 111 Middle Road, I decided to take a walk to the restored school building with them.
How it housed so many students.
Oh, right at the top, the nuns were living on the rooftop. It was the penthouse of Middle Road.
There was
An
open
open
space
space.
for laundry and some potted plants.
Yes, yes.
There are classrooms all around, AVA rooms, sewing and rooms, cookery rooms, laboratories.
And the staff room, the teacher staff room on this side.
And then the offices are inside level 2, and so is the chapel on level 2.
But you know, it wasn't covered, you know. This quadrangle was an open space. So when the rain comes, pitter, patter, we all run
wet.
Sister, is it your first time back?
This is my first time back here in the quadrangle.
I felt very nostalgic, excited at the same time. Kind of miss this place.
Yeah.
I miss Middle Road, and it goes out too. This is a very familiar place for me. It is where I stood for morning and afternoon and evening assemblies. The whole school, about 500 students, would be lined up below,
Yeah?
looking up at the principal.
Yeah. And how would you have done it as the principal?
Show us.
Okay. Good morning, girls. We'll now begin the National Anthem. Now I want you attentive. So school attention.
And that's how you would have
And then the
done
National
it.
Anthem will play, and a girl will be raising the flags there. Over there, there's a flagpole that sticks out.
Right.
Yes.
And then we'll go like,
So the pledge. Yeah.
And after that, I will give announcements, or I have some pep talk.
I wonder if this is a colonial concept, the balcony, because you have it at Buckingham Palace. It's very, very beautiful. So here's what I've gathered so far. Even though European Town wasn't fully realized, the European influences were very clear. St. Joseph's Church over here had its origins in the Portuguese mission. So did St. Anthony's Convent. French missionaries would set up CHIJ at Victoria Street over here, and the Cathedral of the Good Shepherd at Queen Street.
Schools seem to have dominated the area. There were Raffles Girls' School, St. Joseph's Institution, Catholic High, and Waterloo Girls' School.
It's already looking like a very vibrant area to me, but I know I'm only just scratching the surface. What other ethnic communities were living here? What's next on my exploration journey?
As a Eurasian, every family gathering is always filled with three things: food, laughter, and music. Give us a guitar and we will go to town with it. I'm looking for traces of my Eurasian heritage here, at what used to be European town. And I'm going to let music be my guide. It has led me to the Cathedral of the Good Shepherd, located a few streets off Middle Road. Built in 1847, this is the oldest Catholic church in Singapore. Its Renaissance-style architecture is a prominent indication of European footprint on the island. And it houses a national treasure that not many know of. This thing is huge! Crowned the king of musical instruments, the pipe organ is one of the earliest instruments used in worship, and this particular organ was made in 1912, the oldest in Singapore.
Sitting during Mass, the pipe organ actually gives the whole Mass session a very Vatican-esque feel. It's so grand, and the choir is amazing. It just feels different. It's very, very special. You know, in this day and age, when music is so digital, especially on radio, we get the track on a computer and we play it from a computer. To hear a pipe organ and to hear singers paired up with it, it's just so beautiful. It's very different. It's definitely a breath of fresh air.
But what's special about this pipe organ?
When I first started playing the organ, my feet were too short to reach the pedals.
Oh! Alphonsus is the resident organ player who's been at it for the last 30 years.
You know, in Singapore, we have this dish called rojak.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all sorts of things blended together, and it comes out very fiery, spicy, tasty, savory, all at once.
Yeah.
This organ is like that. Because although it says 1912 Bevington and Sons, which meant that it was built in London in 1912, it actually has pipes from all over the world in it. This is the only organ in Singapore in which you would find American organ pipes. They also added German pipes to it. And then when the Filipino organ firm came to rebuild this organ in 2013, they also added Filipino pipes to it. So we've got a whole mishmash of different organ cultures inside this thing. Yeah, and so when you play it, that flavor comes out.
A pipe organ that's a mix of Europe, America, and Asia sounds a lot like the multi-ethnic enclave Bras Basah Bugis is. A true blue Singapore pipe organ indeed. To upkeep such a huge and complex instrument for over 100 years is no mean feat. In fact, the pipe organ was unplayable for 2 decades. Alphonsus told me only one person could save it.
You couldn't see through because this tower down here,
Yeah.
I gave it a coat of paint, and then this was gold. The organ was the same place, but the keyboard
Oh,
was
just facing out.
the other way.
Your main focus is the pipe organ. That's your baby, right? So if anything goes wrong, does everyone call you? Uncle
Yeah.
Robert, something's wrong. Can you come help us?
Yeah, it's a very special instrument because I kind of started from scrap, everything.
Yeah.
And also, It was not just looking after it, was enlarging it. The organ originally was just the middle part.
Yeah. Then came the extra
Then
4
I
parts.
extended the sides. It didn't look so wonderful because if you don't have funds for it and you can't buy pipes that are symmetrical, you have to use whatever you have. So one side was a few of the pipes from the old Victoria old organ,
Right.
and the other side was toilet pipes.
These plastic pipes have since made way for metal ones over the many years of restoration and repair.
Starting with C.
Right.
So maintaining a pipe organ like this, is it very difficult?
Yeah. Especially creeping and crawling inside. And somebody gets stuck and can't come out.
Oh no! Have you ever gotten stuck? And you have.
Yeah. You had to check whether there are any termites inside, because this church was prone to termites. And occasionally we had rats, and at one time there were cats also inside.
Oh, in the actual organ.
Yeah, they gave birth inside.
Oh wow.
This pipe organ is already now over 100 years old.
Very precious.
Yeah, so I think it's not only to me, but to the community here. Because this is the only one organ in the Catholic Church, so they should just keep it going.
So it's like a shared treasure between
Yeah.
the congregation and you as well.
Yeah.
After hearing all about this historical Singapore pipe organ, I really wanted to try it.
Welcome to the office.
Yes, your office.
That's right. So these are all the stops that are on the swell. The bottom manual is called the grate. So as I play this piece, I'm going to ask you to help me build the registration
Okay.
by pulling first the 2, then the mixture.
Then the 10, then the 8, 16 at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. And then the 8 and the 16 at the same time.
Okay.
So we'll build the piece as it goes along.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Got it.
Okay, let's go. So, wait. Now. Mixture next.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, that's right. That's right. Wait, not yet. Get ready?
Yeah.
Now.
Pull the stops. And I noticed the difference it makes when you pull it too early as well.
That's right. No.
I feel like now that I know a bit more of the history of the pipe organ and I've learned a little bit, I can imagine, you know, the honor that you feel when you play it every single week at masses.
I would say it's tremendously fun and rewarding and satisfying to be able to do this for the congregation downstairs.
Schools, churches, music. These are some of the European influences that were in and around Middle Road. But there's something Dr. Lai mentioned that's been on my mind.
Subsequently, because the Europeans found a better place, right, they moved off to the Orchard Road, Tanglin area. So this area became settled by other local folks.
Who are these people who made European Town their home?
In my opinion, private hire car drivers and taxi drivers are the best people to talk to. They have the best gossip. So perhaps a private hire car driver of the past can help me out.
Back in colonial Singapore, rickshaws were the primary mode of transport. Also known as jinrikisha, they were a common sight along a bustling middle road. What gossips did they pick up during their shifts? What did they know about the not-so-European side of Middle Road?
Okay.
Now it's quite simple, you know, like the Chinese noodles,
I'm taking a ride down memory lane with James Sia. His blog is a treasure trove of Singapore's past. He must know a thing or two about rickshaws.
You've written a whole blog post about it, and I've seen it. It's got lots of pictures. What else do you know about trishaw riders and rickshaw riders?
When I was staying in Jalan Bukit Ho Swee, my neighbor, one of them is this trishaw rider. Yeah, then I found that actually they are very hardworking, you know. They will earn a living, you know, for the whole family. So whether it's day or night, you know, whichever type of people, the one who suffer are the trishaw riders. Nobody wants to be a trishaw rider.
What's your personal experience with trishaws?
Okay, my personal experience, I think I was about 6 years old when once on a very heavy rainy day, I went out with my mother. So that was the time my first experience on the trishaw. So I also found that when it rains, you know, they have to pull this up.
Yeah, to cover it.
Use cloth. And then I can't see anything at all. I know it because that is not really a good experience.
One thing is certain, rickshaw riders had a tough life, but the job was popular amongst Chinese immigrants seeking a living in Singapore. To regulate the huge number of riders on the streets, a depot was needed to register and inspect the rickshaws.
In 1899, the first jinrikisha station was set up here down at Middle Road. Now here's what's interesting about it. Many of these rickshaw riders were Henghua people from China's Fujian province, and many of them stayed in the transport industry. Yes, even till today.
这个哦，旧的全部哦要清了，
放后面先，这样。
OK， 好了。
Tay Kin Tian and his son are third and fourth generation Henghuas. They run a tire business that the elder Tay inherited from his father.
这个以前我父亲开店啊，1960年。
The shop was located a stone's throw away from Middle Road at 89 Bencoolen Street.
以前啊，我接手我父亲的生意哦，好像赚不到钱，车辆比较少。那么慢慢扩充到1980年哦，生意好了赚到钱，就自己买车，用为我的旧地址Bencoolen是89号，哦，去标一个车牌换这辆车。
This used to be the go-to place for all things related to transportation. If you were a rickshaw rider in colonial Singapore, you'd go to the Jinrikisha station here. And after the war in 1945, if you owned a vehicle, you'd also come here to register your ride. If you needed car plates, Middle Road would be your best bet. And for all things tires and spare parts, Prinsep Street and Bencoolen Street just around the corner would have everything you need.
我的外公，他是人力车拉那个人力车的，他是跟我父亲一起来，还是什么这样啊？因为他自己去拉了哦，可能中暑这些晕倒没人救哦，去世了。小时候在宾县睡，那时是7、8岁、8、9岁，1960年啊，转去那个Bencoolen市那边哦。 我就帮忙啦，只是做那个比较轻松的洗轮胎呀。以前做一条过程胎呀很多嘞。啊，这样哦。这个现在哦很少人要做，因为做这个工很多，一条要做1、2小时哦，啊赚不到工钱哦。现在的人哦没有很少人做。
Tire making has since changed and many tire shops have moved out of the Middle Road area. But younger business owners like Melvin are still keeping the Henghua spirit alive.
From what I see my dad's doing, okay, it's a lot of hard work and sweat if he's able to endure and do it at his age, then for me is that I will also try to be as good lah.
From rickshaw pullers to tire companies, it's not just businesses that have been passed on from generation to generation. It's resilience and hope for a better future that have kept the Henghuas going till today.
差得多么远？你看，这个早期的，你看很凌乱，什么你看地上啊，什么这些哦，很凌乱嘛，哦，而我接手了，哦，慢慢扩充哦，做到现在。那么以后我孩子接班了哦，可能做比我还要好，可能啊，哦。
Thanks so much for tuning in to the home.
Most days, I'm in the radio studio. Recently, I've been sharing bits of my Middle Road discovery with listeners in a different way.
As you can see, I'm out of the studio and at a tire shop. And you're probably wondering, what does a tire shop have to do with Middle Road?
It's refreshing to connect with listeners using video. Because as a radio DJ, I'm drawn to the power of voices. Which is why I thought I'd search for more clues of the rickshaw trade through voice recordings.
I'm talking of an area bounded off by Stamford Road, from where the St Andrew's School was up to the museum, down Bencoolen Street, into Bras Basah Road, up Bras Basah Road, down by the Cathedral, and back into Stamford Road. That was known as the Rickshaw Parade area. Before the war, prostitution again was under control because they had specific places for prostitutes. Like, for instance, all along the Middle Road, Malabar Street area, there used to be Japanese prostitutes.
So I'm hearing a lot of new things here. Pre-war Singapore and Middle Road was known as a red light district, a bit like what we know Geylang to be today. And apparently, it was known for its Japanese prostitutes.
I'm meeting someone who might be able to shed some light on my initial findings.
Hello, hi Catherine, welcome.
Hi, nice to finally meet you. Thank you for inviting me to your home.
Yeah.
Wow, you really are quite a history buff.
Filmmaker and lecturer by profession. An avid collector of random old medical equipment on the side. Oh, and lifelong gamer. Okay. Back to business. What can someone like Wesley tell me about Middle Road? A lot, apparently. His interest in early Singapore history and passion in uncovering forgotten tales led him to write this book. The setting? Middle Road. And his choice of female lead? A Japanese prostitute, also known as the Karayuki-san.
Actually, we have the book right here, so this is how the book looks like. And basically, it's about the karaokes in Singapore. And I wanted to share with Singaporeans more about them because I realized that probably like 99% of Singaporeans don't even know that karaokes did exist back then. And they were a significant part of our history and community as well.
Ah, okay. So what else about Middle Road did you find out while doing your research into the area?
I found out that Middle Road was actually a bustling Japanese little town called Little Japan, where they had many Japanese shops, where the karaokes would go there to shop and also to serve the general Japanese community in Singapore.
Middle Road was such an important area to the Japanese that they even named it Chuodori, or Main Street.
This is a picture of the Karayuki-sans.
Yes, and it's a photograph of them in a photography studio, and that's what they did a lot in the past. So it wasn't for them to have the time of their lives, but it was actually so that they can do some form of advertising of themselves. So this is a photograph that will be given to perhaps potential customers to go like, oh, okay, that's someone I'm interested in.
Oh, okay. And what are these 6 pictures here? Because I don't recognize any of these streets.
So these pictures are really interesting because they depict the place in the past and the present. So for example, over here is the present area in the Middle Road area. In the past, you can see a little shop called Ichigoya, and that's actually a tailor shop. And over here is actually Bugis Junction area, and you can see the old shop house. Over here is Yamamoto Dentistry, and this is a place that's actually next to the St. Joseph Cathedral.
I feel like of all the 4 pictures, this photo is the one that really strikes me the most. That, you know, they are advertising themselves with group photos, and it's sad, but it's, you know, it's a part of history. So yeah, I like this one.
Wesley wants me to have an immersive experience of Middle Road as Little Japan in the 1800s. So here we are, tracing the steps of the Karayuki-san.
So the Karayuki-sans were Japanese prostitutes from the poverty-stricken parts of Japan in the 1800s. So do you know what the word Karayuki means?
I have no idea.
So Karayuki actually translates to gone abroad or gone overseas. And that's exactly what they did. They were actually sent from Japan to various parts of the world, such as China, Malaysia, Russia, and even here in Singapore. So, Catherine, we're around the middle of Middle Road.
The middle of Middle Road, okay.
And I like to imagine, you know, where these Japanese shops were at. So I can imagine, you know, perhaps the tailors were over there, or perhaps the laundry shops were over there. And for example, there was the very popular tailor Ichigoya, and that's the tailors which the Karayuki loves to go to. That's where they get their yukatas and their kimonos sewn. So they were here from the 1870s to about the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. And then suddenly they just disappeared over time. So what happened was World War II. So when Singapore was under Japanese occupation, and after that, when the Japanese community had to leave Singapore, many of the shops had no one to run them anymore. Which is kind of sad because, you know, in Singapore we have Little India, we have Chinatown, and I sometimes wonder, you know, what if World War II did not happen? We probably have like a small Little Japan, Little Tokyo.
Yeah, this could have been Little Japan.
Through Wesley's book and research, we can only imagine a time when Middle Road was the go-to place for the Japanese. But would it be possible to track down someone who lived here? Remember when Dr. Lai was giving me an overview of Middle Road's history? He mentioned a place that caught my attention.
Just before the war, right, you know, there was a Japanese consulate that was set up around Mount Emily. It's probably around here. Right, and they occupied a house called the Osborne House, which they sort of bought over from a Japanese dentist who was living there. One of the reasons, of course, was that it overlooked the entire Middle Road. So it's almost like, you know, a place of governance, right, overlooking the most important street regarded by the Japanese community.
Wesley also mentioned the same building.
And what about this one?
These are the Japanese consulate buildings, I believe, and this was down the north side of Middle Road.
Mount Emily Villa, also known as Osborne House, was an important landmark for the Japanese. Who was the Japanese dentist who lived here? What happened to his family? Where did they go? Journalist, writer, history buff, Aina has met someone who lived here in the 1930s.
Yeah, so it's around here. And Miyoko's room is around.
From 1935 to 1939, the villa was owned by Dr. Jukichi Ikeda, a Japanese dentist in Singapore. Not much is known about Dr. Ikeda, but in 2016, one of his extended family members, Miyoko Yoshida, revisited the house for the first time since the 1940s.
This is the article I talked about.
Oh.
Yeah, and wrote in 2016. And it actually recorded the entire trip of Miyoko's visit to the building.
So that's Miyoko.
That's right. From here, you can see at the center of the article, we purposely put the 2 pictures here. But you can see 2 occasions when Miyoko was standing in front of the house. Actually, the pictures were about some 70 years apart. Yeah, at that time, on the left, Miyoko was about 8 to 9 years old. On the right is Miyoko in her 80s in 2016.
Okay, so this is the front of the house, and yeah, it looks really, really good. Basically, this house was owned by a Japanese dentist. Anyway, they were repatriated back to Japan before the war, and it really has a lot of rich history. This building has turned into many different things over the course of the last century and a half.
After Miyoko and her family moved out, the building was taken over by the Japanese Consulate General, a strategic location overlooking Middle Road. Today, the two-story structure is home to the Intercultural Theatre Institute and is currently undergoing renovation works. It's a pity that I can't get a tour of the house, but when Miyoko visited in 2016, she was happy to see that much of her childhood home has remained intact.
So tell me a bit more about Miyoko's experience with life in Singapore, her life here.
She actually remembered very well, and she painted a vivid picture of her life. She left Singapore when she was 10. And before that, she went to the Japanese school down the hill.
Yeah.
And every day she said that the life was simple and then well provided because the granduncle was a dentist and their life was quite happy. So there was stark contrast when they were sent back to Japan in 1941. One remark made by her stays with me till this day. She said that if it were not for the war, the family and her, and she will stay here for a much longer time. Yeah, that's made me feel that the civilians are always the victims of the war, and then their life was, turned upside down.
From Karayuki-sans to dentists, the Japanese were part of the community in pre-war Singapore. Middle Road was their main street, and this house, the symbol of their presence and identity. I left Singapore when I was 16 to pursue my studies in Australia. I know how lonely it can get to be on your own in a foreign land. Forming new friendships can be difficult. But there's one thing that never fails to break down barriers: food. I've learned that there were many different ethnic groups living around Middle Road, but there's one community I'm curious about: the Jews. In fact, traces of their past can still be found around Middle Road today. Why did they choose Middle Road to be their home base?
Onions and potato. Oh my God, I want to cut myself.
Since one of the best ways to learn about a culture is through its food,
4 tablespoons, okay.
I'm starting in my kitchen.
That's a big tablespoon. 2.
This one?
Yep.
Meet Rosita. She's known in the Jewish community for her food.
Is it a big fire?
Medium.
She's visiting family overseas, but because food knows no boundaries, we are making potato latkes virtually.
Can I just ask if food is a very big part of Jewish culture?
Yes, it is, because in Jewish culture, each food, almost food that we eat during high holiday or not just a holidays, they symbolize of something. Potato latkes, we usually eat it during Hanukkah celebration.
Oh, okay.
The reason why we eat fried food is the food symbolizes the miracle of the oil in the temple in Jerusalem that was ruined, and then the oil is supposed to last for one night, but miraculously that oil can last for 8 days and 8 nights. So we celebrate that miracle of life by eating fried food on the Hanukkah.
Yeah.
Your latkes look so delicious.
Cheers!
Since food is so closely tied to Jewish identity, where did the early Jews get their food from?
Middle Road, Saligi Road, Short Street, and Princeps Street. This was the Jewish Quarter, or the Mahala as it's known, which really means place in Arabic.
With the synagogue over at Waterloo Street, the Mahala was the place to meet. a home away from home for Jewish immigrants. The Meganabath Synagogue is the most prominent landmark of the Jewish quarter. Constructed in 1878, it was the glue that brought Jewish immigrants together. And it continues to do the same for Singapore Jews today. More widely known as a trailblazer in Singapore's luxury fashion industry, Frank Benjamin has been a familiar face at the Jewish Quarter since 1934. He's probably the best person to show me around.
So, Catherine, this is our Kosher Shop.
Nice.
It's a mini market, so to speak.
Is this the only kosher shop in Singapore?
The only kosher shop in Singapore. The only reason we make this kosher is because it's not contaminated with beef and chicken or anything like that, you know? They have a special mark, and that tells us it's kosher.
Explain to me exactly what kosher means.
It's what the Jewish people have been told by sages, that we should eat things that are no shellfish because it's unclean, no pork because it's unclean, cows with cloven hooves we can eat, but horse, for example, which has hooves, we can't. So there are restrictions on our dietary laws. That really is what it's about.
So now we're in this kosher shop. Tell me some of your favorite products here.
My favorite food, my favorite candy is the marshmallow.
Why marshmallows?
It's nice and soft and sweet and lovely. I don't know, don't ask me why, but it's something that appeals to me.
If food is essential to Jewish tradition, then worship is the hallmark of Jewish identity.
So here is the holy sanctuary, our synagogue. This is the lifeblood of the Jewish community from the very beginning.
The earliest Jews in Singapore came from India and have their origins rooted in Iraq. As their population grew from about 500 in 1910 to close to 1,000 in 1941, the synagogue also expanded from a small shophouse to the premises at Meganabath today.
We had all our kosher stuff done here. Marriages, circumcisions, bar mitzvahs, you know, young boys at 13 coming of age, all was performed in the synagogue. So this was a very, very important part of our life.
Tell me some of your fondest memories growing up along Middle Road.
Oh my gosh. My uncle opened a dress shop in Middle Road called Hilda's. Mr. Isaac, very well known in those days. I was working with my uncle Hilda's in Middle Road every school holiday and earned $150 a month, which went towards helping the household expense.
Oh.
I used to buy my shoes in Middle Road. We went to Swiki, famous chicken rice, before I became kosher. And yeah, Middle Road was a place of activities, you could say. There's some pictures here which I'd like to show you. This was my father's father, my grandfather. This is my father with his shop in Change Alley, selling fabrics.
Preserving his heritage is so important to Frank that he even wrote a book to tell his family all about it.
And this is Mr. Isaac of Hilda's married, and this is Hilda, his wife. He named the shop after his wife. I miss living in that area because all my friends were living there. And we used to wander all around on our motor scooters, driving through Middle Road, which was a main thoroughfare to Alhambra Cinema and Marlborough Cinema.
Almost had that kampung spirit.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a very all-inclusive, our community.
I've We've been on a journey, discovering hidden streets, lesser-known facets of Middle Road.
Good morning, girls.
There's Miyoko.
That's right.
For a more immersive experience, I've planned a series of Instagram stories, bringing listeners along with me on this adventure.
So this journey started with me wanting to find out more about my Eurasian heritage, but it turned out to be more than just that. Yes, back in the day, the European town was located there, but it wasn't just Europeans that resided there. There were Jewish people.
It might seem that I'm in your regular supermarket, but it's not. It's actually a kosher shop. And I think it's the only one in Singapore. Oh, maybe I'll take this. Oh, and this. Whatever my one hand can handle.
The Japanese people, and also many Chinese dialect groups. You know, I'm not much of a history buff, but I never knew that in and around just one area held so much rich history. So you know what? I hope you guys have enjoyed my Instagram stories that I've posted over the last couple of weeks on my journey. And trust me, from now on, every road that I walk on, I'll never take it at face value because, you know what? It probably holds some really, really rich history.